2 hours, 1 minute, and 7 seconds. That's how long it took for the most important corpse in The Walking Dead to open its eyes again. It lives on a recording, filmed in a lab, and played back later on a wall of monitors for a room full of strangers. And the man who kept that time, down to the second, was her husband. And most people file that scene away as creepy world building from an early episode and never think about it again. But hidden inside that recording is the answer to a question I see fans argue about constantly, and almost always the wrong way. What is actually the deadliest thing in this universe? Because it's not the walkers, it's not the governor, and it's not Negan, and it's not any of the people we've talked about before. The deadliest thing in The Walking Dead is a killer with no face and no dialogue. It never appears on screen a single time, and the show quietly handed us its entire case file across 4 seasons while we were all watching something else. So today, I want to walk you through the career of the real killer of this series. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how it works. You'll know its real body count, and I'd almost guarantee you'll never watch a quiet death scene in this show the same way again. And stay for the prison section, because that's where this thing stops being background lore and does more damage in a matter of days than an entire army. Context. So we're all on the same page. In season 1, everybody, the characters, and honestly most of the audience, believed this disease had one simple rule: the bite. You get bit, you burn up with fever, you die, and you come back as one of them. Every reanimation we saw in those first episodes traced back to teeth, so the rule looked clean. Stay away from the mouths, and dying still worked the way it used to. And the show spends its first weeks confirming that belief. At the camp outside Atlanta, the group is attacked at night, and Andrea's little sister Amy is bitten. There's no mystery about what happens next. Everyone knows. Andrea holds her sister through the night and into the morning, telling her, "I love you." And the show makes us sit through the entire process in real time. The death, the waiting, and then Amy's eyes opening as something that isn't Amy anymore. It's the first time the series shows us the full cycle from beginning to end, and it's brutal to watch. Same attack, same camp. A man named Jim gets bitten too. He hides it at first. When the group confronts him, he actually tries, "I got scratched during the attack." But the fever comes for him fast, and his own description a day later is that his bones are like glass, that every bump of the truck is killing him. So eventually he asks for the one thing they can still give him. "I want this. Leave me here. Now that's on me, okay? My decision." They leave him sitting against a tree, and his last words as they walk away are that the breeze feels nice. So that's the deal the group believes they've made with the apocalypse. The bite is the bullet, and everything else about dying still belongs to the old world. With Jim's fever fresh in their memory, they drive to the one place on the continent that should understand this disease. The CDC in Atlanta. What they find is one exhausted man alone in a bunker, Dr. Edwin Jenner. And according to his own video log,
it's day 194 since wildfire was declared.
And 63 days since the disease abruptly went global. Hold on to that word, by the way. The virus is never given a name in the entire series. The closest thing it has is a code name from a dead man's video diary. Jenner shows the group the only real science the franchise ever puts on screen, a recording labeled Test Subject 19, a full scan of an infected brain from infection to death to what comes after. And TS-19 wasn't some volunteer pulled off the street. It was his wife. She was bitten. She knew exactly what was coming. And in Jenner's words, she begged him to keep going as long as he could. She donated her own death to the research. On the playback, Jenner narrates the disease almost like a weather report. It invades the brain like meningitis. The adrenal glands hemorrhage. The brain goes into shutdown, then the major organ, then death. You watch the lights of a human mind going out one by one on the scan, and his summary might be the coldest line in the whole series. Everything you ever were or ever will be, gone. And then comes the second event. The scan lights up again, but not the person. Jenner is very specific about this. Just the brainstem. Basically, it gets them up and moving. A shell, driven by mindless instinct. A body rebooting with nobody inside it. Then he drops the numbers, almost in passing. The restart can happen in as little as 3 minutes. The longest they ever heard of was 8 hours. His wife took 2 hours, 1 minute, 7 seconds. And honestly, the detail that stays with me isn't the science, it's the stopwatch. He logged his own wife's resurrection down to the second. You only keep time that precisely if some part of you still believes the number will matter to somebody someday. That's a man doing science at the end of the world for an audience he suspects is already gone. He also mentions, almost as a footnote, who the last hope actually was: the French. While his own people were bolting out the doors and committing suicide in the hallways, his words, "The labs in France stayed at their posts till the end. They were the last ones working on a solution." And then that sentence just stops. Nobody in the main series ever finishes it. Remember that, because we'll come back to it at the very end. The bunker, of course, is on a countdown. The fuel runs out, the building sterilizes itself, and the group barely makes it out before the whole facility goes up. But in that doorway, in the middle of the chaos, Jenner grabs Rick by the arm, pulls him close and whispers something into his ear that we are not allowed to hear. The show sat on that whisper for 13 episodes, and so did Rick. The payment comes due on the last night of season 2, and it comes twice. Out in the woods behind the farm, Glenn and Daryl find Randall, the prisoner kid, walking around as one of the dead, and Daryl does actual detective work on the body. He wasn't bit, his neck was broken. Those two facts should not be able to coexist, and yet there's the corpse, standing up, hungry. And on the other side of that same farm, in an open field, the exact same impossible thing is happening with Shane Walsh. A knife to the chest, not a bite anywhere on his body, and he stands back up. I made an entire video about that man and what his corpse proved to the group, so if you want the full story of that night, it's linked in the description. The next day, on the highway, with the farm burning behind them, Rick finally empties his pocket. We're all infected. Whatever it is, we all carry it. At the CDC, Jenner told me. And when the group asks how he could have known this whole time and said nothing, his defense is about as human as it gets. Would it have made a difference? I thought it best that people didn't know. Now sit with what that reveal actually does to the story, because I think most of us absorbed it as a plot twist and moved on. The bite was never the infection. The bite is just a filthy wound that kills you, one exit among many. The virus itself is already everywhere. It's in Rick, it's in Carl, it's in every baby who will be born into this world. It isn't hunting anyone, because it doesn't need to hunt. It just waits for any heartbeat to stop. Heart attack, childbirth, old age, a bad fall. And every single time, it collects. Which means every camp, every community, every sanctuary in this universe is quietly storing its own outbreak inside its own walls. The dead outside the fence are the visible problem. The real one is in the blood of everyone behind it. It took a couple of seasons for that math to come collecting, and when it did, it picked the strongest community the show had ever built. By the start of season 4, the prison genuinely works. There are crops in the yard and pigs in a pen. The survivors of Woodbury have been taken in. There's a council making the decisions. Kids attend story time. The fences bend under the weight of the dead some days, but they hold. After all that running, the walls have finally beaten the walkers. So the story sends in the one enemy that walls cannot stop, and it chooses the most harmless person on the entire show as its delivery system. Patrick, a polite teenager with glasses, the kind of kid the apocalypse somehow hadn't ruined yet. His big scene that day is walking up to Daryl and saying, "Mr. Dixon, I just wanted to thank you for bringing that deer back yesterday. It was a real treat, sir, and I'd be honored to shake your hand." And Daryl, in the middle of a meal, shakes it anyway. It plays as comedy. Watch it again knowing what's coming, and it's quietly one of the darkest jokes the show ever told, because Patrick is already sick. That same day at story time, he excuses himself. "Ma'am, may I be dismissed? I'm not feeling very well." He's worried, in his own words, about yakking on somebody. And out in the yard, one of the pigs, Violet, is lying on her side, and Rick's read on it is that she could be sick, could be nothing. That night, Patrick gets up burning with fever, stumbles alone into the shower room, collapses, and dies right there on the tiles. No walker touched him. Nothing got through the fence. A teenager caught the flu in the safest place in Georgia. And then Jenner's whisper cashed in, because in this world, nobody just died. Some minutes or hours later, Patrick opened his eyes inside a locked cell block full of sleeping families, standing between them and the only door out. By morning, cell block D is a crime scene. Whole families gone in their bunks, in the dark, and the community shooting its own dead neighbors at breakfast. And when Herschel examines one of the bodies, the cause of death isn't teeth, pleurisy aspiration. He choked to death on his own blood. The culprit, in Herschel's words, most likely an aggressive flu strain. As for how it got in, the best theory the show ever offers is his too. Pigs and birds. That's how these things spread in the past. Quite possibly the prison's own farm. The same pen, the same animals that made the place feel human again. The show leaves it at most likely, and honestly, that's scarier than a confirmation. So now the strongest community on the show has to fight a war at the scale of a droplet. Anyone exposed gets separated. Karen, the woman Tyrese loved, and a man named David are the first two symptomatic adults, and they get moved into isolation to sweat it out. The plan is quarantine, tea, and hope. Someone in the prison doesn't believe in that plan. Tyrese goes to visit Karen, follows a smear of blood down the corridor, and finds her outside, burned, both of them, dragged into the yard and set on fire before the fever could even finish incubating. The virus had been inside the walls for about 2 days, and it was already killing through the living. It didn't need to reanimate anyone for those 2 deaths. It just needed somebody to run the horrible math. If you watch the Shane video, you've met that exact logic before, and you probably remember who Rick eventually asks, "Did you kill Karen and David?" And that the answer he gets back is one word long: yes. Meanwhile, the sick list refuses to stop growing. Glenn is on it, then Sasha, then Caleb, the actual doctor treating the ward, 5 more within a day. And Herschel Green, the oldest and most vulnerable man in the prison, decides he's walking into the death ward himself to keep the sick alive with herbal tea and stubbornness. His logic, when the others beg him not to go in, is one of my favorite lines in the entire series. You step outside, you risk your life. You take a drink of water, you risk your life. And nowadays you breathe, and you risk your life. The only real medicine is antibiotics, and the nearest supply is at a veterinary college 50 miles out, a place called West Peachtree Tech. Think about what that sentence actually means. The CDC vaporized itself in Season 1. The last institution on Earth that studied this disease is a crater, so the cure run for humanity's strongest community goes to a school for animal doctors. Daryl, Michonne, Bob, and Tyrese drive out and barely make it. At one point, the road itself is dead, buried under a herd so massive the car simply can't push through, and while they're gone, the ward tips over. This is the episode called Internment, and I think it's the most honest hour the show ever produced about what this virus really is. Patients crash one after another, and every single one of them is on Jenner's stopwatch, 3 minutes to 8 hours. Herschel, alone in there, wheels each body out of sight before doing what has to be done, and when he's asked why, his answer is simple. People don't need to see it. I don't want them to. The man is running a hospice where every loss immediately becomes an armed intruder, and he's doing it with a kind voice. Glenn goes down, choking on his own blood. He's turning blue, and while Herschel fights to clear one man's airway, the beds behind him keep turning. At one point, the count inside quarantine is simply, third one we've lost. The antibiotics make it back just in time for Glenn and the others, and the outbreak finally breaks. Not thanks to the CDC, thanks to a veterinary school and one old farmer who refused to let sick people die alone. Now, do the accounting for that arc, because I think it's the whole thesis of this video. Through the entire outbreak, the dead outside never managed to kill a single person inside those fences. Even when the outer fence finally collapsed that same night, Rick and Carl stood in the yard and put down every walker that came through. The visible threat got handled, and the prison still filled a graveyard. Patrick, Karen, David, Caleb, the families of Cell Block D, the ones lost inside the ward. 3 episodes later, the governor rolls up with a tank, the walls come down, and history hands him the credit for ending the prison. But go back and watch Season 4 with today's video in mind. That tank knocked down a community the virus had already hollowed out from the inside. Its doctor, its families, its sense of safety, without firing a single shot. Woodbury's entire army couldn't do from outside what one flu season did from within. So let's give this killer its full career review. Across 11 seasons, every antagonist eventually loses. The governor ends up dead in a field. Negan, of all people, ends up reformed. The Whisperers get wiped out. The virus never loses. It's never named, never cured, never even explained. It walks out of the finale with a perfect record, and its body count is much bigger than it looks because we've been crediting its kills to other names. Every walker anyone ever put down, that's the virus's work on a delay. A herd is just this pathogen wearing 10,000 borrowed bodies, and even the intimate deaths belong to it, because in this universe nobody gets to just die anymore. Every deathbed comes with one extra step, a knife after the goodbye. Amy, Jim, Jenner's wife, Patrick, Karen, and David, the ward at the prison, bites, fevers, and murders that all cash out to the same account. The walkers were never the disease. They're the symptom, the part you can see and shoot. The thing you can't see is the reason no wall in this story ever feels safe for longer than a season, because the dead outside the fence are basically weather, and the survivors learned to live with weather a long time ago. The virus inside the fence is arithmetic. Enough people plus enough time equals an outbreak. Every community, every time, forever. And here's the thought I can't shake. The series finale ends with survivors rebuilding, hopeful, walking off into their future, and every single one of them is still carrying it. The whisper Jenner passed to Rick in that doorway is still true on the very last frame of the show. The real apocalypse of The Walking Dead was never defeated. It was managed. There's a difference, and I think the show was honest enough to never pretend otherwise. As for where this thing actually came from, the main series never answers it. Jenner's half-finished sentence about the French labs just hangs there for more than a decade, but the franchise did eventually pick that thread back up, quietly, in a place most fans never thought to look. That story deserves its own video, so I'll be making it. And that would be everything for today's video. If you enjoyed it, leave your like and tell me in the comments, which one actually scares you more, the herd outside the fence or the fever inside it? And be honest, before today, had you ever counted the flu's bodies? I read every single comment, and lately the comment section has genuinely been better than the videos, so keep them coming. Subscribe or follow me depending on where you're listening or watching, and the video about Shane, the man whose corpse confirmed all of this, is linked in the description if you haven't seen it. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.